What's going on, guys? This is Sky Pirate Actual. Today we're going to be going over raking, raking techniques, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about having a plan of attack when attacking locks. The locks that we're going to be demonstrating on today is going to be this just cheap, small Brinks padlock. I think it's about 4 pins. We have a 5-pin American 5200, and then this KIK or key lock. It's pretty old and rusted, which is what I actually prefer to practice on. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna place this Brinks lock in the vise. So one thing you'll probably ask yourself right before you get ready to pick a lock is pick and tension wrench selection. So the biggest things you want to look out for is making sure that your tension wrench isn't actually taking up the majority of the keyway, because that won't leave you any room to actually rake, which you actually do need room to rake in the keyway, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to use this this custom 4-peak and bottom of the keyway tension for the Brinks lock. So when I'm actually raking, there's a couple different techniques you can use. A lot of people, they'll use a scrub motion, which is usually just fastening out. Me personally, I like to lift and rake the pins back. So I'll go up and then rake out in order to set the pins on the way out. I'll show you both methods because both methods do work. So first I'll demonstrate the scrubbing. So super light tension is preferred, but once again, it depends on the lock. You can use heavier tension for other locks, which I'll show you here after I demo on this Brinks lock. So this is scrubbing. So light tension, and there we go. Very easy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reset. And then for this next one, I'm going to scrub forward, tilt up, and rake out. And done again. So there are different types of raking, obviously, and you'll have to experiment and find out what your preferred method is, but also having different techniques so you have more tools in the toolbox to deal with a different variety of locks. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place in the American 5200. So one thing you're going to have to mind when you're looking at a keyway, you need to, I mentioned this earlier, but you might need to vary with the thickness, the different thicknesses of your tension tools. Let's see, sorry, my hand. All right. So for this lock, I'm going to use the snake rake, or oh, excuse me, the worm rake. If I can get it off of the table. All right. So this is what the worm rake looks like. It's rounded at the edges, as opposed to the 3-peak, which is sharper at the top, which I'll show you here in a second if I can get it out. And then you have your 3-peak versus your worm. All right. So same thing. So light tension with this American 5200. I'm gonna go to the back of the keyway, tilt up, rake forward slowly. And there we go. Took a little bit longer than I expected to. And then I'll go ahead and I will demo the scrubbing motion. I actually need to tighten this a little bit. Alright, so now we're going to scrub. What do you know, that was actually a lot faster. Alright, so I'm going to relock that, take that out, and I'm going to go ahead and put this key lock in. So for each of these, for the first 2 locks, the tension, you could remain fairly light on that and it'll work just fine. For this key lock, I found that you actually have to use slightly heavier tension for raking. And that keyway is much, much larger than all the other ones. I'll give you another one for comparison. So which means we'll probably have to use a larger tension tool to fill up the bottom of that keyway. These tools are actually being quite a bitch today and don't want to come off the table. Alright. So we'll use a thicker tension wrench. We're going to go with bottom of the keyway tension. And I'm going to put some fairly heavy tension on there. And there we go. Oof. That is rusty. But there we go. Let's see. We'll bring back this extra generic Chinese-made 40 millimeter padlock. For the cheaper locks, you can usually use very, very light tension. And like I said, I found that using that upwards sweeping motion and raking back tends to work more often than not on any lock that's able to be raked in the first place. Bouncing it up, and it's open. Alright, so the next thing I will go over is having a plan of attack. So a lot of times when young pickers, old pickers alike, when you can't figure out how to open a lock, some of them tend to stick with the exact same method and don't realize that you can vary your methods in multiple ways to achieve gaining entry. So you might have to rake and single pin pick the exact same lock. You might be able to rake in order to induce the false set, and then go in and fine tooth comb pick with your hook, using single pin picking method, and open the lock. But at the end of the day, it's all about gaining entry. So having that plan of attack, it might not even just be with picking. So even if you're just trying to gain entry to a house, you might not need picks at all, because maybe it's not as fast. So there are other tools and methods you can use in order to gain entry. So that's a big thing. So if something doesn't work, give it a minute and a half, or even 30 seconds, and if that method doesn't work, switch it up. You would be surprised that that other method might work twice as fast. So the biggest thing is maintaining that problem solver mindset, not becoming too dialed in and tunnel vision on using one method to open the door. Problem solving requires flexibility, creativity in order to solve a problem or gain entry. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to pick locks, use non-destructive entry, destructive entry, covertly, overtly, gaining entry to a structure facility, or just picking a lock for fun. All right, and I am Sky Pirate Actual, and if you have any questions, feel free to DM me.